Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Legacy Podcast. This is your host, Jacqueline Hyacinth, and I'm so grateful and excited to be sitting with Barbara With, who is an incredible woman who is doing beautiful things in the world, who is a published author, a divine channel, who is part of a peace revolution, and so much more. So, welcome, Barbara. I'm so grateful
Oh,
to have you with us.
thanks for having me, Jackie. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So, one of the main areas of interest that I have is working with incredible beings who are in deeper surrender to higher consciousness and connection, and who are part of a living, breathing expression of change on this planet. And so, Barbara, I know that you are embodying that. So, it's really beautiful to really listen and hone into the wisdom. First, I just want to chime into how amazing it is to offer our lives in a strength that offers to a deeper surrender as a channel of higher consciousness and wisdom. And I know that you are working with some incredible beings, and I'd love to just start by like dropping in around who are you channeling, working with, anything you want to share about that.
Yes, and let me preface it by saying if you want to read the whole chronological story and see the whole library and understand how it all fits together, you can go to synergyalliance.llc. And that's really the deep backstory. But for answering your question today, I work with a group called The Party. And it started out as The Party of 12, a book that I channeled back in 1998 of 12 famous dead people who said they were working in afterlife for world peace. And before that, I had been channeling with two other women. We called ourselves the Psychic Sorority. We call ourselves the Psychic Sorority, but that's how I started group channeling. And before that, I went to a channel, we didn't call her a channel, but for many, many years. So all of this is my life, particularly being specially trained to be a channel for Albert Einstein. And it was a long journey. So I don't, when I say, oh yeah, it's Albert Einstein and, any other famous dead person who you might think be working for peace, when they pass on, who wouldn't gravitate towards this party in afterlife with Einstein, having interactive activities, apparently. So it's been a phenomenal journey for me to get there. But now that we're in 2024 and the world is in the state and the condition that it's in, all this information I've been doing for 30 years, back when world peace wasn't really a hot commodity like it is today, it's it's the answer. It is exactly the peace movement we need because it doesn't depend on any money. It doesn't depend on being in a group. It doesn't depend on calling your senator. It doesn't depend on marching in the streets. It doesn't depend on anything but what's going on inside here. And this you can change if you're, and they even told us this in the very first group channel we did. You can change your perspective locked in a closet, imprisoned. You can always have control of this part of your energy. And when we make peace here, it's a natural manifestation into the physical world of the lens. It's wild. So,
Amen. Yes, the work starts from within. So I want to start with you were once a marching activist. I just want to get like a
yes.
snapshot of who you were and how it kind of led you to the position now you're like in a different state of awareness. So you're contributing something different now than you were before. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that journey.
Well, the spiritual journey was a lot more of hands-on learning about the process that Einstein was channeling through us and creating conflict revolution.
Okay.
But when the activism started in 2011, when I got back from my European tour that year, because I used to go to Europe 2, 3 times a year, I channel, I teach, I do readings, and the government in Wisconsin had changed drastically to become a one all the majority was all Republicans, and they were going to put in a 22-mile open pit mountaintop removal iron ore mine
Hmm.
on the shores of Lake Superior, where I live.
Okay.
And so I got pulled into, it wasn't just activism, but that whole region. I live on an island in Lake Superior, northern Wisconsin, and it's all Anishinaabe territory. It's all Indian
Yeah.
treaty land. And so there's deep, deep, deep roots in that area of protecting the water, and both tribes still, or the both, yeah, bands still have reservations there. So I got pulled into activism, and I became an investigative journalist because no one was reporting what was really going on in the legislature with these laws being passed. Now it's just how we live. But back then I witnessed the hostile takeover of the government of Wisconsin with from these corporations, and documented it. So I became a bit world famous in northern Wisconsin for being somebody who would dig deep and report with integrity. So we fought the mine off, and then I did some other stands. I went to Standing Rock, and we had a camp of our own, a water protection camp up in the hills. And then in northern Minnesota in 2021, 7 Indigenous women started water protection camps because Line 3, Enbridge Line 3, was coming through all the wetlands, and they were doing horizontal directional drilling. It's still a nightmare, but I went to live at the camp. I spent the whole summer just living at the camp and got arrested. We spent 3 days in jail. So I have a background in activism, but it's rooted in the Anishinaabe, or the indigenous idea of activism, which is about prayer.
Yeah.
They never did, there was never violence at Standing Rock. And even when the veterans came and they were going to like liberate 3,000 veterans came, and the leaders at Standing Rock said, no, you're going to pray with us.
Mm.
So the if you see my spiritual life, it kind of ended then. I didn't stop giving readings, but a lot of my focus went into this. And then I had to shift back to Einstein and the work at a particular time. And then I realized that it was the marriage, it was the chocolate and the peanut butter. Is that I have this incredible body of work that is the answer that he's told us since the beginning, 30 years ago, this was going to happen. And I'm 69 years old. What am I going to do? Sit on my island and ski all winter? I mean, it's a love I have, but it's time to get back out there. And so I'm finding it's much different, this activism for me, than trying to go around the country making a living doing something.
Mhm.
I am called to places and people and to do things. And so I'm working out my life so I can just be that. So I can just follow that daily intuition and I have a goal.
Yeah.
My goal is that Einstein wins the Peace Prize posthumously
Mm.
for this work of him proving that there is an afterlife, and how communication takes place, and then how we control this. And if all of us just do this, however many you do it, 2 more people do it, where you figure out that this work inside us is the key. You can't dismiss it like, oh, there's a war raging in the Middle East, so this is not working. No, no, this is the participation of the willing for this experiment. Like, we are the lab rats of consciousness,
Mm.
and we can do this. We can start with ourselves, and so many people do.
Yeah.
And even at the Science of Consciousness conference that I just got to have a little piece of speaking at, I spent a week with scientists at a conference at the University of Tucson put on. 30 years they've been doing this conference. And 30 years ago, all it was scientists. So I couldn't have gone. I would sit in the room and pass out from
Yeah.
whatever you're saying. And what happened was, through the years, as the scientists studying consciousness, they discovered that there's this unseen world that is bigger than what they know, and it just naturally grew into, now the psychologists were coming in, and now the Rumi poets were coming in, and people had explanations of what consciousness was. And so now there's a very open mind, and they picked me, somebody who talks to dead people. I'm not a scientist. And what I found out, long story short, is absolutely well, I won't say 100% because I still have to take the next steps where I bring the whole presentation to the scientists, and then not only see what they say about the science, but then issue the challenge. If you want to study consciousness, you study your own consciousness. And
Exactly.
and here's a model that's really simple. It's hard to do when you're doing it, but it's so easy to understand. There's only 3 human dimensions. You got a witness of it. You have to commit to it, like everyday experiments you do on anything outside yourself. And report back. Let's do a study.
Which is going to be so powerful because this is the antidote, because everybody in this collective field, sometimes a nightmare, is us projecting everything is outside. And so when we turn that back upside down, right side up, right, we understand that all of us are a part of this great weave. And each one of us is responsible in the most wonderful way for us, for elevating our consciousness, for our participation in humanity. And if we can twist that and make it, not selfish about me, but like, wow, I'm a conduit. I'm part of this. I'm part of this living global family. Then please, scientists, because I have a whole lot of feelings around the industry, and I'm so grateful to see that things are catching up and that quantum physics is becoming a thing. But as we know, science is just catching up with spirituality. Spirituality is this, in our traditions, it's known, my Swami says, spirituality is the grandfather and science is the child. And and so it's like beautiful though. It's like how humanity on these different thresholds, wherever you are, you can relate to something wherever you are, right? But so getting science on board with actually the inner instead of just the consistent testing everything else outside. Yes, you become the living experiment. You become the God self. You have it inside of you. So I'm a big fan. Let's do the thing.
I know, and what I learned is that is what you said about, I felt like the grandmother, even though all those astrophysicists and whatever their ists were who were speaking, and I described it like, a dog who might know the word walk,
Yeah.
and you're going, well, maybe we should take the dog for a walk, and he hears blah blah blah, blah, walk, walk, walk. So I would hear these words I understood, and I could put them in our maps. I didn't have the whole picture, but I'd walk away going, yeah, yeah, you're on the map, you're on the map.
Yeah.
And so to put a challenge out to the scientists in a scientific way, like, this is your wheelhouse science. We're just asking you to study yourself in this particular way, conflict resolution, how that works. And then I know what happens.
Mhm.
I know that even if, for like today, if when someone listens to this podcast and puts 2 and 2 together because they're willing,
Yeah.
you don't go back.
Yeah.
You only move forward. And then you realize the power that you have when you see the actual things change. Can I tell a little story about our first fight?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd been working with the psychic sorority, doing these groups, and they said they were angels and they were bringing this process. They wanted us to test about resolving conflicts that they thought would result, the byproduct would be world peace. So, well, I guess we were chosen and volunteered to do this, on a soul level. So we had our first fight, and we're at the table, and I'm going, well, Kim, you need to blah, and Barbara, you didn't blah, blah. And I said, whoa, okay, we just did this. Let's get and so the sentence I picked out of the transcript we just did, which was called conflict resolution at the time, said, if you are emotionally involved in a conflict, the root is within, your root is within you. And in a swooshy moment, we all kind of got it like, oh, and so I could come back to the table and say, all right, here's what I need to do. And Kim could come back. And it was a revolutionary outcome that had synergy to it. It wasn't just, oh, a nice different way. It was like this. And part of it was they just told us in a channeling session what to do. And we went and got it and did it. And it was miraculous. So that whole process part was also weighing. Anyway, I went to work that night. I was playing at a beautiful hotel in downtown Minneapolis at piano. And there was a waitress there who didn't like me. And it was okay. I know you just ignore each other and you do what little interaction you need. I walked in that night and she was so kind and open and talking and offering me to give me cassettes. And she put $20 in my tip jar. And I put two and two together, I guess, to get three, and went, this is what they're talking about. You change the manifestation of the present moment that you're in, and it manifests in a way that you can't go directly at. I couldn't take the waitress aside and sit down and say, do you have something against me? Or, you couldn't have done it. So it's those kinds of experiments. Mm-hmm. And then when you get that result and you see it, oh, I'm excited in 2024 what you young people who already know this, but when you put it together with just this slight different twist and you find your power, are going to do it. It's a done deal as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. That this Einstein's vision to get this out into the world, all you have to do is see it once.
Please bring let's bring it. Yeah, it makes me think something that's coming through as like a storyline for me is like when you hear people talking about like particular places or experiences they've had, like where there's a stereotype of like, I'll use Paris for example. I have a very strong connection with the French and the land, and you hear people and they're like, oh, Parisians are so rude and blah blah blah, and I'm like, I have not experienced that at all. They're so loving to me. Like I got the red carpet when I was there. And this is the perfect example of like, depending upon where you are in your energy, what your present moment is looking like in your own inner landscape will be how people are relating to you. So it's just really interesting. Yes, the conflict is within, right? And
yeah.
everything is an opportunity for us to coalesce and shift and come into deeper union with whatever's there. And we're just like we're just channels for all of it, right? Like who's to say what that maybe you knew that waitress, maybe you didn't know her, you know what I mean? But regardless, it's like an opportunity that these energies are in a space for us to reconfigure and create a new timeline for something more aligned, something more loving. So we really are the new earth. Like every time we reignite and take responsibility and just drop in and do some of the inner work you're talking about, it's a freaking opportunity. It's a golden opportunity. So,
Absolutely.
so I want to lean into you about something now. So like we see the massive division on the planet, right? We see red versus blue. We see black versus white, all this bullshit that has been running for thousands of years that we're all trying to heal collectively. And man versus woman, divine versus human. I mean, you name it, right? So coming back into that neutrality and with this work, like just give a little bit more of a detail for people so that they can understand, like, wow, for those that are so heartbroken looking out at this living world, right? And want so much to be a part, but don't know how to step in, don't know how to help, just let's breathe into that, like how they absolutely can. Everyone matters so much.
Absolutely can and are here to be here. We're here to be here to be that human equation, the unifying new earth. We're here, it's like when I was confronted with my journey, my path, it's like the angels, they said, you volunteered and you were chosen.
Yeah.
So you can complain,
Yes, we do complain
but you raised your hand and said, send me.
to Earth.
And we all said, okay. So everybody bought in. And I have to say, just briefly, I had a beautiful reading when I was in Romania last month or whenever, and she was Romanian but beautiful, and she's like, Einstein, he's saying, you're a wiener, a little English thing is, you're a whiner. I was like, what?
Ah,
You're a whiner, like, ooh, boo. Yep, I'm a whiner. But you
yeah.
know what? I go on and have this. But anyway, it's where were we? I just got
Oh, that's
lost.
perfect. Thank you. I just want to say I really appreciate that because I've been like the big crier. Like when they're like, go to Europe and do this, go here, go there. And I'd be like, oh, like giving up the next part of my life and oh, just crying, screaming about it. But I always go.
Nobody knows my burden.
Exactly.
I know. So it really brought some humor to that. But I think for people who are feeling so lost and helpless, when we if you want to, I promise you that conflict revolution will create some kind of revolutionary change in your life that you yourself will facilitate. And the beauty of the process is that when you catch yourself being the one who's victimizing yourself, when you catch yourself, because part of conflict resolution is what you don't like in somebody else, if you triggered, the root is in you. So we're going to revolve it back to see where you're doing the same thing and you're not catching yourself.
Exactly.
And then when you catch yourself, there's always this shame sort of, oh, gee, and then I was blaming that person. So we have two really simple ways to see this energy differently. Intellectual energy,
Mhm.
thinking, analyzing, thought process. That's one way. This is one human spiritual organ of intellect, three human dimensions that we fix because it has ego in it, and ego's been given the power to direct the hand to hold the steering wheel and pull it to the left when intuition says turn left.
Mhm.
So when you understand the functioning of your own little system, that this is what intellect does, and it has the power to say, no, I'm going to turn right, and then make the hand turn to the right. That conflict, Einstein says, is the root of everything you're seeing. Everything you see, the right versus the left, the Israel versus the Palestine, everything originates in that tiny of a step. So all you have to do is be responsible for your own domain and make sure that you're aligned to compassion, which is what we teach you how to do. And the other emotion piece of it, the shame comes up or all that anxiety that we've been carrying around or whatever, we completely regenerate by using our breath work
Mhm.
and disengaging our intellect and our analysis, pulling those two apart, because that's what's fueling reality, is that emotion coming up. Intuition is always impelling the next most advantageous step for the good of the whole creation, including your heart beating, all kinds of things you never see. But it's also telling your human mind what is that next step to take for the big picture. But your human mind has no idea what the next big picture is.
Yeah.
And so we train you to just trust that voice of compassion within you. And so these are two pieces. And I always advise people when you're starting to do this, you wake up in the morning, you say your great prayer of gratitude, you step into your witness and you set your intention. I'm really bugged that my mother doesn't respect me. Okay, so today I'm going to watch myself to see where I'm not respecting, first and foremost, myself, which means, am I listening to my intuition? What is my ego doing? What is my intellect? Has it taken over the whole system as I worry all day long about tomorrow? So this kind of work is something everybody can do. And I've never seen anybody do it that doesn't get the miraculous results. And I think my next book is going to be the stories of conflict revolution. It's
Mm.
the revolutionary changes. And I just wanted to say one more thing about revolutionary is that sometimes and I've told this story a lot in the past few months, but I love it. I had a associate, a client come to the workshop, and she had a conflict with her mother-in-law for 25 years. And it really doesn't matter what it was, but when she got it, like tears filled her eyes, and she said, I don't even know if those 25 years of conflict have been her. And so it was revolutionary for her after 25 years to feel this huge major shift in the relationship with her mother-in-law. It may not, bring peace to Israel and Palestine, but it's a start, and it's how we do it. And then she gets to have a better life.
Yeah,
She gets to thrive.
and in many ways, I mean, it's ancestral revolution, right? Because any single time that we're doing the inner work, it is, I believe it touches more than seven generations backwards and forwards, but it just opens up this pockets of resolve within our consciousness, within our children, within our lineages. And that is part of this. That, I mean, that's the work, that's the part of this.
Yeah. And when you said new earth, when you see our map, the unified field, and see that the source is in the center of the earth, and the lens is where the physical world is experienced, and there's this gravitational wave coming up with all the math that you're going to be, and then it bursts into the lens with the body is then projecting and perceiving. That's literally part of the earth. So, and that part of the earth, the non-physical part, is where these three human dimensions operate. And so you can't really see them directly, but you see how they manifest in the lens. So if there's conflict in the lens, we can use that as a clue to revolve back to see, okay, what's going on in this part? What is my intuition telling me? What am I doing with my emotion? Are they building up? Are there abscesses? What's going on in my intellect? Whoa, that's lifetimes of work right there. I got enough work out just on myself, much less think about what anybody else should be doing.
It's huge. It really is. And yet it's so simple if we just bring it back home.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the trick is Einstein said one time not too long ago that when they started as angels, air quotes, they were a little concerned about how would they inspire these humans to do this work, because nobody really who wants to do the shadow work, not anybody. But what they realized was, because what they were telling us to do was the truth, because his unified field theory, which proves why conflict revolution works to manifest something different in the lens, we can show you how that works, the truth is what inspired us. The fact that we were getting these miraculous results. It
Mhm.
wasn't anything they were saying. I mean, yeah, they were telling us what to do, but it was us taking it and doing it and having it work. That's what inspired us. So that's how I feel about it right now. Everybody I've been talking to, you get it. It's simple. Now that it's articulated in this way that I've said ad infinitum for 30 years or however long. And everybody is ready and there, and so yeah, it's time has come, and I'm so excited. I'm
Yeah,
just
isn't that amazing? As you said, the time has come, right? All these, like these timeline convergence and this preparedness and readiness, like how in all these cycles of time, like when Jesus came, when Gandhi came, like all these different parts, all of these divine beings were coming in and doing their part and offering something of consciousness at that time. And now here you are offering this next body of work and backed by all of these. I mean, we're just not doing this work alone. We are a
oh
family of light, and we come supported and strengthened with this divine will to like power on forward. But the fist is different. The fist is like integrity, love, consciousness, awareness. It's a whole nother level than what many are experiencing. right now. So it's so beautiful that this is really like coming through. So that way there are more options, more awareness. It's it's really, really divine.
And from my point of view, having done this over 30 years, it's also what you were talking about, ancestral lines changing as we change. The angels would told Kim and Teresa that when you change yourself, your children's lines are going to change.
Yeah.
So 30 years later, there's so many children on the planet now of those ancestral lines that were these circles of compassion. So there's this huge army of untapped compassion that understands way more than anybody did 30 years ago.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Right? It's like all these starry kids that come in to the lineages, and there's so much here. There's so much here. And that for me, there is like a great is hope the right word? There is a significant understanding of this like sacred bond and revolution that humanity is coming forth together to like orchestrate. And it feels like a love song that we just haven't yet matured into fully, but it's like everyone's starting to play their rhythm and get themselves together, and then we're gonna hum it out.
here comes the choir director.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
will lead the sing along.
Yes. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it
Nice.
really is.
So tell me something. How do they do it with you? Like, so is it you offer programs where people can come in and work with you? How do you, or is it more through, broad audience talks and then they can start to adopt the body of work? How right now, I realize all things change
Yeah. Well,
right?
there isn't really a way. My
Right.
life in general has been sort of random and choppy, but
Yeah.
because right now I'm very dedicated to the idea of going where I'm led for intuitive reasons,
Yeah.
and but I am always available. So people have been like, I had a woman hear me on a podcast in Texas. She reached out and had a reading. Turned out her grandfather was a Italian astrophysicist that worked with Einstein. And then her friend brought me down for a workshop and gathered a group of 8 women. And we had a weekend of just intensive, and these women were amazing. Oh my gosh. So we did conflict revolution, which it was always a great time. You know, everybody, you bring a conflict, and
Yeah.
it's a hoot.
And God knows there's enough of those around.
Well, and you find out everybody basically has about the same two conflicts in the whole world, you know, when you boil it down. But anyway, and then I try to do at least a monthly channel online, a Zoom channel that's always posted to my socials. But for example, I was thinking about this morning before we tuned in, was that I'm in this pet sit. I've been doing pet sitting across the UK, and I'm on my last 2 pet sits on my journey before I end up back at home for a while, in way up in the mountains in Colorado. And this woman was very eccentric, and I got to her house and I was a little nervous. Is this a little hoardy house but as we sat and talked, she talked about her husband or her partner who died 3 years ago, and kept referencing him and talking about the flowers. And yes, there's pictures of him around the room. And oh, well, maybe I should have a reading, before when you leave. And she left, and I was kind of complaining that the house was kind of dirty. And then I started to hear him. And he was like talking through the flowers, because apparently every single time that they met, he brought her huge bouquets of flowers. And for 3 years, she's been buying herself flowers on a regular basis because she's been so grief stricken to have lost the love of her life. She finally only knew him 3 years before a chainsaw accident where she found him.
wow.
And when I heard him, whatever it was last night, audibly saying, please clean the house. And then it was almost like I saw all these pictures of her grieving. And I understand how it is to lose someone. My nephew was murdered. It's just a hard process to get through. And so suddenly everything shifted into, because I love to clean anyway, but and then getting excited that she's going to come home and her house is going to be, and then
Oh,
he said, can I leave her a message? Because she was looking forward to me coming because I was a psychic, you know. So to me, how do you capture that moment? Like, I'm going to do workshops, not that I'm not going to, and
yeah,
the plans are there, but I love that I'm just a person.
yeah.
You know, I'm not a rich person. I'm not a famous person, but that's how you change somebody's life in a moment like that for them to connect and be a part of it. And that's the old fashioned talking to dead people. Before I talked to famous dead people, that was what it was like. Someone's mother would come to me and say, I need to get a message. And I'd say, get me to them. And then they would. Like,
That
I'm not calling them up. You get them in front of me. So,
I'm with you. It is some of the deepest. It's like so simple and it touches something so deep inside of people. And
yeah,
it's so beautiful to see too. Like I know there was a time when I took my gifts for granted, as I'm sure you know, like it's part of the path of like, oh, realizing that not everybody has this or everybody does and they're not accessing it, whatever it is. And then, wow, this actually, when I actually use my voice and do it in service, it changes. Even that is a conflict revolution,
exactly.
right? I mean, like it's like two pieces are then made whole just in that moment.
Yeah. And also that everything you do is in service.
Everything.
Everything, standing in line at the supermarket and being kind, being that radiating energy that's changing the world wherever you are.
Thank you. This is actually a really important piece of this conversation too, because I know the world is like, I know I've been there personally and also in working with people. There's this like, I want so much to be on purpose. Like I want so much to have something to give to the world. And everybody's looking for this big magical thing that they're here to be. And it's like, it's that simple thing with take your little ass downstairs and offer water to the workmen because they're thirsty, right? Or like these, and when there is that connection in the simplicity of just serving the people you love and that are in your reach and in your community, it starts generating from there, right? Because our hearts open, we become accessible, we become available for the divine to use us in all the ways. And once that connection is made, in the same way, right, when you clean that woman's house and give her the message, something opens for her. It's almost like a parallel reality, like something becomes engaged. And
Yes.
we feel nurtured and fulfilled in being the truth of who we are, just showing up and offering that glass of water or offering that message. And that's how the divine uses us all the time in very simple ways. Like
Yes.
some of us will be on stages and some of us won't. Some of us will be in a school or at a bank, being that, being whoever it is, we're here to embody and be. But if we can just open up that heart of service and know that we make a difference just by the love that we exude. And then,
Absolutely. And that's our job. And when anybody wonders what you can do for world peace, or if the world is so divided, well, when you start with yourself and you unify yourself and align yourself like we talked about, then that magically, when you step into a room and there's a conflict, suddenly you're not projecting all your stuff all over everybody and trying to work it out here. You're feeling and breathing and taking care of yourself, and it's bringing creative solutions. That's what I like to call it, is that I, as a peacemaker, won't be, Greta Thunberg or, whatever. I will be walking into a room where there's a conflict going on and feeling and breathing, first of all, and, doing my own thing and listening to people and letting spirit intuitively tell me what's the next most advantageous step for all of us here. Such a huge impact on, and imagine all these little places all around the globe lighting up without any control from the Illuminati or the governments or the World Health Organization. They just naturally, however it happens, begin to crumble. Justice starts to prevail when we all are just with ourselves in this way. And I'm looking forward to it, seeing
Me
how that all
too.
happens.
I love that you use the word justice because for me, the way in which it's being used, like most words, are upside down in our current reality. And that justice is such an act of love for the self, right? All the ways that we seek to see justice in the world is also a cry. Yes, humanity is there's a lot of unconsciousness, so there's a lot of pain that we're seeing, but just that justice starts within. Like if you want to be if it's a race matter, like how do you create the justice inside of yourself so that you are respectful of all beings? Like absolve your own bullshit inside of your own heart and psyche, how you feel around different groups of people. Release that programming and heal it just by your presence and your love, and then the whole world is going to look different to you. Like it takes 10 minutes in your living room sometimes that you're like, oh my God. You go outside and it's like, wow, people are really responding to me differently.
Exactly. And Einstein has such a great definition of evil.
Does he tell me?
It's making decisions for the good of the few at the
Mm,
expense of the many.
that's a good one.
And it's in relationship. Now, remember, this is the most quantum level of consciousness that there is, right? Is that if intellect makes a decision that goes against, because emotion is flowing up, bringing the sound of this compassion and intuition. So there's a two. And if intellect says, no, we're not going to do that, that's making a decision for the good of the few at the expense of the whole, actually. Because, now we're blocking how manifestation is supposed to work through us by
I
using our humanity.
I like what you're saying, and what he's saying because it softens things and makes things really like practical and applicable for people to gauge wherever they are. Because for me, like the language I would use is like anti-life, right? And life force. And I mean that you can look at that and we can into many things about what that can look like. But the reality is it at a very simple level, at the core is that's what it is. And so getting out of our heads, getting into our hearts, being in the body and being available for the current of intuition, of synergy, of creative life force to move through us. It's literally it's like we are training our vessels and activating and opening our, so for some people would be like it's their yogic channels, for other people whatever language it is you use, it's
Yes.
like starting to use this vessel. For me, I want to say like the mother, like use it in integrity, start to tune it, open it, activate it so that it can be what it's actually meant to be instead of being brainwashed. And ps, I got a book that you recommended. I didn't start reading it yet,
Oh my gosh, yes.
but I got it, and it was so funny because other women who I'm friends with were like, "I'm reading this book." I'm like, "I already could feel the energy. I know the book you're talking about. I just got it too."
Yeah. Hmm.
So yeah, so that we can start freeing up our energy and using it intentionally for the good of all.
And the thing to remember is that since it's all originating within me,
Yeah,
my domain, everything, all the us versus them, the non-life forces, it's all originating
so
within me.
mhm,
So when I work on my own divisions and
yes,
bring this unity together, not only does that have no effect on me,
yeah,
but then I change it.
mhm,
So that's what I love about this work. And it also that you don't get the power unless you go through compassion. You don't get the power of manifestation in this way unless you're aligning yourself to compassion. And then you create these miracles.
absolutely. I know I've been there where I've wanted to change the thing and it can even see in consciousness, right, what needs to change. But if I'm judging it, I don't have access. So I have to be able to totally drop into that compassion in order for it to shift, which means you can be up against the wall for a long time. And like, I mean, it's a process of learning and growing, as you know. But so like fine tuning all that so that we can open up, because once the compassion is there, it's like zero time. As long as you know where you're going and like you're clear, oh, I'm holding this, but I actually, the truth of me is this, boom. But it's when we're judging the
Yeah.
experience of where we were and how we've been. And that's really hard. I have spent a lot of terrain there.
You know, it's so interesting you say that because I was relating the story of when I first started to channel, my first spontaneous automatic writing. I'd been going to a channel, I knew what channeling was, so I wasn't like, but, and I was writing a letter to my friend, a snarky letter, telling her how bad it was for her to make judgments. And I was about to go off on my usual self righteous direction when my hands went, because when you make judgments, like a camera lens, the lens closes down and you can only see a very small picture of the whole. So open up. We're waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
That was the words, my first words I ever channeled. I thought, well, of course, when I was typing them, I thought, well, that certainly wasn't what I was going to say to Leslie.
Yeah.
And but that is it. And I've never forgotten those first words and about judgment and even judgment of our judgment.
Yeah.
When we do conflict revolution, we want you to be honest.
Yeah.
We want to see where your judgments are in there that you may not think you're having, because we get so self-righteous and we think we're so right, and you know, we don't see that we're being the judgmental ones. And so let's find out, change it.
Thank you for that. Yes, let's do that. So tell me, is there anywhere else you feel like we need to go, or do you feel like this is sound and yeah, just lean in, take your time, because I'm open.
I think that we have given people a great deal to think about. And I'm excited because I want people to be able to walk away from the podcast with a couple notes, you
Mhm.
know, intellect, intuition, emotion, witness, intention, looking for what I don't like in her, feeling
Yeah,
and breathing. Simple,
very
simple. I
simple.
want somebody to walk away and be willing to do this, because as we build momentum from the ground up, this is going to also reflect from the sky down. I guess if we're talking about the
Yeah.
microcosm of my hostess here, who I get to help, and the people who listen to this podcast, to when Einstein's winning the Nobel Prize posthumously for his work from afterlife, and now everybody's knowing what it is, and the macrocosm, like a flash flood of exposure. If maybe I got on a Rogan or or Tucker, you know,
Yep.
that's what I see. That's what I'm going to create, and then you can't stop it. It just can't.
P.S. You'll have a giggle. It was like 3 weeks ago. I was like, I really want to go on the Joe Rogan show.
I
And then I
know.
was like, yeah, I think I want to do that. And then I actually looked up how to get in touch with them. It's very challenging, very interesting. But anyway,
Yes.
yes. So, yes, may you be on there. May I be on there. Let's go play with Joe.
Well, I got my book into the hands of Deepak Chopra,
Amazing.
and um, the last time that I set about in 2007, I just published Imagining Einstein, and I left my life. I left my husband and my home, and I thought it was that important back then. And I had a synchronicity with a man named Jeff Hoppe, who had an organization called Crimson Circle, and
Okay.
he invited me to channel at a worldwide event. It was going to be broadcast worldwide back in 2007. He had kind of a jump on live streaming. He was doing
Mm.
Saturday live streaming since like 2002 or something. So, yeah, so I got to channel in front of 500,000 people, and not only did my book sell like hotcakes, but I was invited everywhere. Come to Greece, come to Norway.
Amazing.
And so, and it was, I only stayed home because of what happened with the mine and the water in Wisconsin. I had to stay home and work with that. But now I'm back, so I see no reason why. I've proven I can do it once, do it
Beautiful.
twice. So here we go.
I love that. Thank you. Before
Thank you.
before we close out, I feel like there's something in my heart that is coming through around just honoring Indigenous wisdom. And so just wanting to full circle and talk about just how the beauty and the intelligence and the wisdom of obviously not all peoples, but of peoples who understand the power of prayer and to rally in prayer for the earth and to rally like this is such an incredible gift that is available to humanity. And it feels to me like the piece even before we can go in and do the work on ourselves, right? It's like just that active prayer first of like I can give my that moment be in my heart and offer a prayer and that is reaching and connecting to something bigger and that has a part that's like a big piece of the hum on the planet and the weave. So yeah, just honoring the wisdom that is carried forth in all of these different ways and that is the humility and the grace that I want so much for our youth to act to open and activate within them. And I'm just calling in lots of love and care and that their hearts be centered and wise in what they are called to bring forth as these next wave of revolutionaries, because we're seeing so much happening on college campuses that right this big emerging of like they know they're here to shift something but they may or may not yet have the wisdom, the mentorship, or the tools to do it in a way that is honoring of all beings and like so that they find their footing and grace with that. So Einstein and all the divine beings get with the youth and please elevate them and support and strengthen them. And may you and me and all of these divine mothers and fathers on the planet who have this lived experience and activating this consciousness, we're learning from them and they're also learning from us. So may we hold this bridge in such a way that refines and honors what we've all come to do here together. May we all sing the song back and forth, and may we actually hear its true tune so that we attune to the significance, the consciousness, and the wisdom. Oh, makes me want to cry. So that we are fortified in our experience here and that we can really implement the change that wants so much to be alive and in the hearts of humanity and this beloved earth who is doing such incredible things just to hold us while we all grow up and, and do all the things. So, yeah, just Einstein
Beautiful.
and all the beings. Let's lean into the youth, please.
Hmm.
Thank you. Ah, that was my mother
That
heart.
was beautiful.
Thank
And if there's one thing we can take away from the indigenous is that they pray over everything. They
you.
carry around a bag of tobacco, and when they step out to have a smoke, they go to a tree and put the tobacco down and say thank you as a prayer. So something we can all do, just every day become a waking, walking prayer.
Amen to that. And it's not appropriation. Please appropriate that. It's a gift of great love that is here for all of the ancestors. We are all from the four cardinal directions. We are all here and at our core and roots, we are all indigenous at some level and connected to the original source of the mother and the father. Go forth and make your prayers. Go talk to the trees, lay on the earth, let's do a thing. It's the only way back. It's the only way
Yeah,
back to like really, really to touch home again.
yeah, it's to touch that earth.
Yes.
And an elder at Standing Rock told me, there's the medicine wheel, the four colors. He said, it's who's left in the middle. It's not one side or the other. It's who comes together in the middle to create this new earth.
I love it. Let's do it, Barbara. We're doing
All right. We are. We are.
we are. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your
Oh,
love, your
so
wisdom.
much my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, really, really good. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in and may you be blessed in all the ways from this. And yeah, thank you so much. Ciao for now.